microphones. I do use them every day. So do you have an opening yet? Have you? I don't have an opening.
No, I don't have anything.
We're gonna have to get a banjo music or something in the background.
I don't have an opening. I don't have. I don't have a name.
Hey, I'm John Ball. You're on Flight Talk.
No, I'm not calling it that.
I can land there. That should be the damn title right there.
That's not bad.
I can land there. Yeah. We'll have to rewrite the song. We'll start the song.
I've thought about different names for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's different things that I throw around every now and then, like 5 knots faster. 5 knots faster.
5 knots.
Well, that's everything that you've ever put on an airplane. Everything you've ever put on an airplane.
We'll give you 5 knots.
Yeah. I'm going to add this fairing.
Is that a mechanic thing?
Oh, it's what the owners bring to us. They're like, hey, would you put this on my airplane? And we're like, why? And they're like, it'll 5 knots faster. Put the wheel pants on, 5 knots faster. So it's all 5 knots. The other one,
I want 5 knots slower.
Right. Everybody, see, you're part of that group. That's like, I want to stall at 23, and I want to take off at 22, and hey, this will, and.
I want to basically be a helicopter pilot.
Like when I go flying with people, I'm like, you can't even make your own airplane fly 5 knots slower if you want. Like your airspeed indicator reads out in 10s, and
there's no such thing as 5 knots, you moron. Have you ever just wanted to yell at a customer? Like, have you ever just had a guy come in? You're trying to hold down the professionalism. You're trying to hold down the entire situation. If I run a business here. But there's a part of you in that inner little kid that just wants to flick him in the forehead.
No, I've never had that guy, but mainly because when I see these guys that come in under that pretense, like you can tell how unaware they are of what they're saying, and so you feel sorry for them more than you. Like, and so
you pity these people.
You kind of do, and so like you take on this role of here. Let me educate you gently about what you need to know. Like I've never really like lost my cool. Like I lose my cool against other mechanics, but I've never like against a customer. Like no, because they don't know what they don't know.
So you treat them like fat kids.
The thing that I've always wanted to do though is put on the white lab coat.
Yeah.
Somebody brings me an airplane that's just this derelict garbage plane.
Yeah.
So many times I've wanted to walk in and be like, I'm sorry. We've done all we can. There's nothing we can do to save it.
We tried.
We tried.
You bought a plane in Florida. This is on you.
If you act quickly, there's a 172 in Nebraska that could use these magnetos. Are you part of the... part donation program?
Are you in the donor program?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do to some of these airplanes, because some guys will bring us just and it's heart wrenching because they're like, oh, my dad taught me to fly in this airplane and I'm 87 and I got to fly it one last time, and I'm like, this should not leave the ground.
But think about this: at 87, send them up.
Last time.
Just send them up. Just
through the barn upside down.
You know what? We're gonna secondhand Lions this deal. Y'all just, you know what? This plane, Dominus Ominous. I've touched the wing. I fixed everything that could go wrong. Walter, get in that bastard and go up. You're good.
That's what I do to my own airplane when I get
fly
tired of
over
looking
sharp
at it long
things.
Enough. I just, oh man, I need to get flying. Well, it looks good enough to me. I'll go. No, So 5 knots faster. Somebody was like, "Oh, dude, you got to do like hangar talk or the flight line or something like that." I'm like, "Dude, that's literally every podcaster's name." And then I was like, for a while I've wanted to write a book, and I wanted to call it "A Hole in the Sky," because that was always my dad's thing about flying and airplanes. He's like, "Airplanes are a hole in the sky into which you pour money."
Yeah,
and I'm like. Yeah, so I want to call this book A Hole in the Sky. And then I was like, well, I'll call my podcast A Hole in the Sky. And then I'm like, I'm going to put that on Spotify and somebody's going to be like, what's this? A hole in a sky.
A hole in the sky.
And I'm like, well, that would be even better.
A hole in the ground.
A hole in the sky.
That's the thing about flying, though. And your dad, I get his point. But at the same time, that's why you work. That's why you have money, is to dump it into the crap that you like to do. And I love dumping money in that hole in the sky.
People come to me. And they're like, I want to buy an airplane. I'm like, oh, well, I have a better idea. Just take your wallet out onto the ramp. Here's a lighter and some fluid. take all the cash out of it, set it on the ground, light it on fire, and watch it. Because
you
that's
can't tell them that. You got to tell them to get it. Buy a plane.
no. The one thing that I do tell people, when they start doing this, and I think I told you this a long time ago when you first started. I was like, don't ever try to justify owning or flying an airplane. Don't ever try to, run the numbers. None of that.
Right.
The only reason that you should get in an airplane to go fly it is because it is the coolest thing on planet Earth to do. Just
5% of the population.
I don't care if you could drive there faster to get a burger. Yeah. Fly there, borrow a car, drive, park, get a burger, walk if you have to because you flew in and everybody else in that burger joint drove there and they're parked in the parking lot.
That's right.
And so that's why I fly.
So here's the intro. This is the first one of these things you've done, and you don't want to do your own intro, so let me do your intro for you. My name is JJ Harrison. I am a rodeo clown. I have always been a cowboy. I met John Ball probably 14, 15 years ago. I would bet we're at that point now, right? 2007. I got my license in 2010. So I started.
I met you after you got your license.
After?
After you got your license.
Okay, so we're at 12 years then.
You already were flying when I met you.
Okay, so we're
now
at 12
it sounds
years.
like you're interviewing me, but I'm really interviewing you, and I don't.
Yeah,
here's the thing.
But I got to tell who you are. People need to know who you are.
Nobody. I don't want people to know who I am. That's just.
I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyway. So I'm a rodeo clown pilot. I show up out at the airport and I mill about like a weirdo, and that's what people who want to be pilots do that are actually committed to it. Is they just mill about, and then any old senile dude with a plane that says, "Well, I'm gonna go up. You want to go?" Yes, I do. And I ran into you, as you say, after I got my pilot's license. Which
right now, I sound like I'm old and senile.
Yeah, no, you weren't the old senile guys, but I did fly with many of those. But I ran into you after I had my license. That makes sense because I was able to get my license. And I think if I'd met you and flown with you before I got my license,
no,
I would have taken fish.
No, you wouldn't. Because here's the thing: if you had met me before you got your license, I would have treated you differently. I would have talked to you differently. I would have given you different information. And the reason is because I didn't want you to be corrupted. Getting your license is the threshold.
Right.
You have to cross that threshold the proper way. You have to do your time. It's like going to a high school kid and trying to tell them all about college. You can't do that. You have to get the kid through high school first. And so if you had been learning to fly, I would have made you, I would have talked to you in the most basic, I would have just given you all the little talking points that Jim Fish wanted. Yeah. Jim Fish, by the way, to anybody listening, is the designated pilot examiner that all...
Love that guy. He was so fun. He took all the nervousness out of my check ride, and we ended up having a good time. So you have to go through the checklist. You have to do everything the right way.
And that's how I would have treated you. I would have just, I would have made sure that you knew those things, and I wouldn't have given you any, I might have shown you a little bit behind the curtain, but it would only have been to keep your interest up.
I don't know, man.
That's the only time I do that. But
you never told me anything. I just went flying with you. You never told me anything. You just took me flying.
No, what I said to you was, I said, come with me because I don't want you to grow up to be a pattern dweller. Because our local airport here is Martin Airfield, Sierra 95. If anybody wants to look up on a map and find out where we are. Nothing happens there anymore. COVID shut the whole place down. I don't even know if morning old guy coffee happens anymore.
No, it's gone.
Back when JJ had just learned to fly, there was still morning old guy coffee. Mm-hmm. And this is when about 12 people over the age of 70 would get together and talk about when they used to fly, guns, and Ronald Reagan being president.
Pretty much.
And that was, it would have made a great podcast.
Avgas prices.
Avgas prices.
Yeah.
And I was familiar with going there because I'd been going there because I worked at the airport for a long time. And so I knew that these guys were doing this. And it was just fun to show up and listen to them talk, rile them up and, whatever. And then here's this young guy. like somebody my age, and I'm like, who is
Yeah, I didn't
this
fit.
guy?
I didn't fit
No,
there.
and not only did you not fit, like usually when new pilots show up, I'm sorry, but some of the new pilots are just strange to me. Like,
Weirdos.
yeah, there's something about aviation that attracts.
Definitely weird, but-
You know, I mean, you and I are in it, so that should tell you everything you need to know.
Right.
So here's this kid.
I'm older than you.
Compared to everybody else, here's this kid.
Okay.
And he's, you know, just learned to fly. And I'm like, oh, this could go one of two ways, because now all of his information coming in is from these old guys.
That's very true.
And all they do is get in their airplanes. You know, after coffee, about 3 of them would go get into their airplanes because they were still allowed to fly. And they would do circles around the airport. That's all they would
Right.
do. Just pattern dwell.
Yeah.
And and I knew that there was more to flying than that, but I knew that this new kid didn't know how much more to flying there was because he had just learned to fly. And so all he had knew and understood about flying was get in the airplane, take off, fly somewhere, fly back, hold your altitude, hold your airspeed, hold your heading, plan across country. Like those are the things that you
All
learn
the
to fly.
checklist stuff, right?
But here's the thing about flying that nobody talks about. You are allowed movement in 3 dimensions, and people treat it like it's 2-dimensional.
Yeah.
They take off, pick their altitude, and just fly in 2 dimensions like they're on this giant lake at 6,500 feet. And sometimes they don't even do that. They just fly the airplane like it's a railroad car, one line. And some of these guys are stoked. This is what I mean by some pilots are weird. Some of these guys are super excited about this. It's surgical to them, and they're into it. And I'm like, okay, you know, that's that kind of. But I could tell you weren't that kind of guy.
No.
1, you didn't dress that way. 2, you didn't talk that way. So I said, come on, let's go play with an airplane. Let me show you there's more to this. And so I took you flying. I had no idea how it was going to go. I half the time I do this with people, and they're like, I'm never getting with an airplane with you again. It's not that I do things that are scary. I do things that are outside their comfort zone.
Right.
And I don't know, like I vaguely remember yours and my first flight together, but I know I took you flying.
We were really low.
And then
That was what I noticed.
And then I sent you with my dad because we had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. He flew much higher.
But you know, my thing always is, don't fly low, close to things. You know, if you're going to fly low, the ground isn't going to hurt you.
No, the ground never hurts anybody in an airplane. Good point. Good point. Yeah, the ground's fine. You can bounce off the ground. No, you just said your thing with me wasn't. It was just, look, you got to understand what an airplane is capable of. It can do so much more than these guys are doing with them. It can do so much more than what you learn. You need to know where the limits of the airplane are so that you can truly understand flying the airplane. And that's what we did for 50 to 100 hours. I don't know how many hours I have sitting in the right seat with you. Is we just went out and
we flew in 3 dimensions.
You showed me what a Clipper, which is a small, underpowered little plane, can do. And so I feel like,
well, the thing that cracks me up is you think this airplane is so capable. All I did was just slow it down.
Yeah, just flew it though. We just did that. You turned, we stalled, we flew up canyons, we turned around in the canyon. We did all that. You landed in places I didn't think you could land.
Now, did I do any of this recklessly and unsafely?
Or who's going to hear this?
Well, no. Here's my question: Did I fly in a way that made you feel A, that we were on a one-way trip?
No.
B, that I was doing something that I'd never done before or didn't think ahead of? I mean, you always have to think ahead of the airplane. It's just like driving a car. You think about, and this is the frustrating thing about cars, but whatever, people don't think ahead. But in an airplane, you have to think ahead of the airplane so that you don't put yourself in a situation that you can't fly out of. And I never, that's the thing. When I say that the ground isn't going to hurt you, yeah, the ground is going to destroy the airplane and kill you if you hit it.
Right.
You're not touching the ground at 50 feet. You're not touching the ground at 100 feet. You're not touching the ground at 500 feet. You're not touching the ground at 6,000 feet. As long as you don't touch the ground.
Or 5 feet.
In a dangerous fashion.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt you. In the same way that if I'm driving into, here to Yakima, I do this trip all the time.
Yeah.
Driving directly at traffic coming directly at me at 60 miles an hour. The closing rate of another semi-truck to me is 120 miles an hour. And I pass that guy down my right side or down my left side by about
4 or 5 feet, right?
if that.
Yeah.
If I was as worried about oncoming traffic as people are worried about the ground when they're in an airplane, I'd be freaking out every 12 seconds in my car. But people don't. They block that out. They go, that truck is not going to hurt me because I stay on my side of the road and he stays on his side of the road. And with flying, it's the same thing. If I stay above the ground, it's not going to hurt me.
That's right.
So I'm going to stay above the ground. And I'm going to plan a flight path that keeps me above the ground. Does that make sense?
It does. But you also, I feel like, getting back to you and my beginning, is I always felt like the advantage I had with flying with you was that I have a sense of ease now. And it's not that you took me out to try to scare me. It's not that you took me out to try to push the envelope.
I didn't want it to be scary.
I mean, we took off sometimes and used the ground as a bump to bounce us to get us in the air, to get over the fence. I remember that. There's stuff where we did some things.
We did not jump the fence in an airplane.
No, we did. We used the hump to bounce to get into the air and fly over the fence. But see, I do remember all of them. But what I'm saying is I'm more calm and collected. And I think that really makes a better pilot. The guy that hits the ground, the guy that makes the mistake, typically is the one who is panicking. And I think that's true even with your oncoming traffic analogy. I think the soccer mom driving who's so afraid because her kids are in the back and she's
Shout
got
out
two
to
hands
soccer
on
mom
the wheel.
drivers, by the way. Wow,
Yeah.
way to
Two
throw them
hands
under
on
the bus.
wheel. Yeah, but I'm serious with it. There's a panic in you. I think the body reacts with a herky-jerky motion.
You're a skier.
Skier. Yeah.
No, you're a skier.
Yeah.
Did you ever teach?
I did.
No,
yeah.
I know you taught skiing, but did you ever teach off trail? Did you ever teach tree skiing?
No,
It was always on trail stuff.
I was a helicopter skiing guide for a while, so we would helicopter up and then North Cascades, drop us off, and I'd take people down. We had 3 different runs that we took people down.
So here's my question. Usually by the time people are into helicopter skiing, they're usually experienced enough to do this, so you probably didn't have to teach them about...
No.
They just have enough money.
You would think that would be the case, but there are many times where I had to damn near walk people out.
My point is, or my question is,
Yeah.
You know this from tree skiing.
Right.
Going through the trees.
Sure.
You never look at the trees. You look at the space between the trees. If you look at the trees, you're going to hit the trees.
Probably going to whack one.
Yeah. And so if you have to teach somebody about tree skiing, say, follow me, don't look at the trees, look where you want to go, because your skis, your airplane, your car is going to go where you're looking. And if you're looking at the thing you don't want to hit, you're going to hit it.
That's right.
And that's what I take into flying. I don't look at what I don't want to hit. It's in my periph. I'm monitoring it, but I'm looking where I want to go, so I can make the airplane go there. Can't remember why I got onto that topic.
Doesn't matter. We were talking about the
Tell me about heli skiing. That's a part of you I don't know.
All
I knew is that you
Kathy
worked at
Sackett and North Cascades helicopter outfit. I don't even know if they're still around. This was in 1992 to 95.
Who was running the helicopters?
I don't even. They leased the helicopters.
I mean, did they contract to a helicopter company to fly the skiers?
Yeah, and I never
But you
cared.
don't know who it was.
I never
Just
cared.
getting the helicopter and going.
North
and hope to
Cascade
stay.
helicopter deal was the deal, and they took us up, basically up into the North Cascades, and we had 3 different runs. We would take skiers down, and I was big into skiing at that time, and trying to be in a Warren Miller movie, and wanted to be, I love skiing, still do. I kind of COVID actually is what got me back into skiing and got my son jacked about it, because I just kind of quit. My rodeo schedule is so busy, and I don't do much anymore but my work, but rodeos, and so
So
this is
now I
COVID stopped it.
now I gotta tell people who you really are, because you did this whole thing about, and I'm gonna tell you who John Ball is. No, we don't care about who I am. But
We didn't even let me finish.
JJ Harrison is actually, I found out today he might not be because he's got a nemesis that he's always competing with.
Nemesis.
You have a
It's
nemesis.
Not a nemesis, a coworker. It's no. It's just the guy that does
Colleague.
the same job. Yeah, colleague.
Yeah, we'll make
Colleague
it
that-
professional.
that kicks my butt.
You guys
Yeah.
are competing all the time.
Yeah, well, there's like 5 of us.
Can't remember the guy's name, but
Doesn't
JJ is the premier rodeo. I'm going to call you the barrel man, because when I call you a rodeo clown, it just sounds
like I
your
work-
entertainment.
Make
But
balloon animals.
the barrel man.
Yeah.
I know nothing about rodeo. I do not know about JJ from rodeo. I do not. I think I've seen you rodeo twice.
Yeah.
I'm not a rodeo guy. I'm not into horses. You put me on a horse, I'm going to sit there until it does something. I'm not a farm guy. I show up out at Martin Field, and here's this kid and wants to fly airplanes. I'm like, well, that's cool. Let's go fly some airplanes. So we did. About a week later, you showed up with the newspaper, and you were on the front page. And I'm like, who are you? And you go, oh, I'm nobody. I'm really nobody. I'm just let's go fly airplanes.
I didn't show up with the paper. I think they had it.
They had the paper, but
Yeah.
you were on the front page, and the joke was that your grandma had made the paper the same day and got shoved to like page 8
Oh yeah,
because
That was
you
not
were
good.
front page.
Yeah, that was not a good day. That's right. I forgot about that. I didn't care.
but
if
that
I'm on
was-
paper.
That was the day that I found out that this guy
I have another life.
that was just some guy to me is JJ Harrison, rodeo clown. And I'm like, okay. I mean, and then I find out you got a trailer with your name on the side and you're doing shows and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I don't know anything about that. Let's go fly airplanes. And that's how you and I have been related through this whole thing. Like my friends will be like, JJ Harrison's your friend. And I'm like, what does that mean to you? That doesn't mean anything to me. Like
My buddy.
we go fly. That's what we do. We don't get together and talk about horses or rodeos, or in fact, half the time I think that's why you call me, is just so you can.
You have nothing to do with rodeo. It's kind of nice.
We can talk about other things.
It's what I do. My whole life is based around it, and so, and you know, there's a you're I call it a C level of fame. There's your A fame people; those are going to be your Sylvester Stallones and Drew Barrymores and Adam Sandlers and everybody. People, movie stars. People know them.
Everybody
you know,
knows that.
You know, Elvis, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's A level stuff. Then there's a B level stuff, and that might be your John Michael Montgomerys, who was a singer in the '90s for country, and everybody knew him at the time. But then it fades, and everybody kind of fades. Then there's the C level stuff, and I think those are the guys like me that people might know who I am because they go to rodeos or they've seen me. Now we're on TV constantly with the Cowboy Channel, and so there is some notoriety that comes with it, but it's not fame. And I think that's important to note because
Like your name is out there, but your face
people
isn't.
will know my name.
Yeah.
What's funny is they'll know my voice too. Like a lot of times I'll be at Walmart or something and I'm talking to people and we're visiting and all of a sudden they'll be like, "You sound really familiar." Like I know your voice. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, no worries, JJ. Oh my God, Jay, you're the rodeo clown.
Right.
You're the..."
And suddenly it hits.
And all of a sudden it hits. And then they try to make it weird. And really it's not. I'm very normal.
I'm not gonna
guy.
lie, when you
It's a C-level thing.
when you
right?
said sea level fame, I thought you meant sea level.
"Oh yeah, you back to the pilot talk." Yeah.
SEA.
Yeah.
Sea level fame. And I'm like,
zero elevation.
I'm
zero
like,
foot.
is this like the baseline of fame?
It is.
Like, is there?
It really is. Everybody starts at what I probably have now that ends up famous,
I'm underwater.
and they climb from there. Well, no, you're just not you're not in the pool. You know, you're not in the.
No, the thing that
deal,
cracked me up-
except at your thing. I mean, everybody's got it in their thing. When it comes to aviation mechanic,
no,
you do have a
here's-
level.
Here's the thing. Here's the best part about being sea level.
Yeah.
That they do know your name, but they don't know you. So you're still incognito when you go around people,
Right. Well, that's the best part of wearing makeup
and then you get to hear people talk about you to you.
constantly.
That to me, I would follow you around just to see that happen.
That's fun. Go to rodeos, take off makeup because I wear makeup. I'm a clown, right? So I wear makeup, and then I will peel it off. And I don't walk around with a name tag, and so it's hard sometimes to recognize me, and especially in the beginnings. And then there's always old cowboys, like there's old pilots, and they would want to tell me back when they were riding bulls, and they'd tell these elaborate stories, and they're just full of crap. But they would tell stories about how, yeah, J.J. Harrison had to jump on and pull my rope and save my life and blah, 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 and these drawn out stories. But really, I was just the only name they could think of to drop. And sometimes I would bust them, but
Oh no,
90%
no,
of the time I'd
you
just
can't
egg them
bust
on.
'em.
I'd let
Yeah.
him go further. Oh man, that JJ he did that. What a stud! Oh my god, yeah, he saved my life. He jumped out of that barrel and grabbed a hold of my side of the spur hung up. I was gonna drag to my death, and he cut the rope. And I'm just like, man. First of all, I know that's not true because I'm more damn afraid than anybody out there. So I'm like, I do this for a living, dude. This is a 2,000-pound bull. You got on yourself. You can get off yourself. But there is a definite weirdness with my day job for sure. And I think that one of the best things about flying with you or anybody like you that I've flown with is that it's just has nothing to do with rodeo, with what I do. And the control tower guy doesn't care that I'm J.J. Harrison. He can be to 500 rodeos and think I'm a B-level fame guy. If I screw up on the radio, I'm getting in trouble, just like everybody else. Harrison Ford, great example.
Maybe not getting in trouble, but at least if you
yeah.
bust on the radio, you're gonna get roasted.
Yeah.
Like, there's no among pilots.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what kind of like. There are a few pilots, who I have heard get recognized on the radio.
Right.
It's rare. And it's the nice thing is it's reverent, which is kind of cool about aviation. But aviation does not suffer fools.
No.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Harrison Ford landing on a taxiway still got in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, and that's Harrison Ford. The dude's in Star Wars, for crying out loud. John Travolta makes a mistake. He's still, I mean, aviation is the great equalizer of.
It really
you're
is.
Not famous in the air. Nobody is. Maybe Sully. Sully.
And the nice thing is the equalizer that I've always appreciated is so much of our lives caters to the lowest common denominator. Like we have to make sure that everybody is included. And to some extent, it's a double-edged sword. Aviation gives everybody the opportunity. Like
right.
It's not exclusive to the opportunity. If you want to learn to fly, we will help you. We will find a place for you to fit in. Maybe you like doing big tire, short, field stuff. Maybe you like
stuff. Yeah.
IFR stuff. We'll find a spot for you. But you have to put in the time. You have to put in the effort. And by the time you get to the end of this grinder that chews people up and spits them out and makes them into a pilot, at that point, it's filtered you from the lowest common denominator to something that we can deal with as a society of aviators. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Where I can trust you. I'll toss you the keys to my car, put gas in it when you're done, bring it back to me. I don't care. You're a pilot. Yeah, you want to show up with your airplane, walk in my hangar. I'll talk to you like I've known you because you've reached a level of responsibility, accountability, usefulness that I can deal with.
Right.
And this is why I don't really, back to the, you ask if I just want to ream somebody out for being an idiot. That doesn't really come to mind a lot just because of the caliber of people that I get to deal with as aviators. Does that make sense?
It does.
Every once in a while, somebody slips through the cracks.
Every now and then.
I mean, I'm here as a...
All right, good stopping point. I'm going to go to the bathroom.
All right. I'm not stopping it. Everybody's just going to sit here and listen to me breathe while you're taking a leak.
Coffee, go right through. No worries. And we're back.
Are we still good on time?
Yeah, I'm
All right.
golden, man.
Okay, cool. You don't have anywhere you got to be. All right.
Not for a while.
So, I want to hear, like, you probably do 567 podcasts a year.
Or 15.
Not that that's what this is. But you do podcasts because you're a rodeo guy. Mm-hmm. You're doing this podcast because you're a flying guy. Like I don't care about rodeo.
Right.
It's interesting. It's cool. It's what pays for your flying.
That's really exactly what it is.
What got you in flying? Like, how did you? Like, I know nothing about what transpired before. Hey, I'm JJ Harrison. I like to ride horses, and I'm JJ Harrison at the airport. Show me what to do with an airplane. Like, I got nothing there. Like, I don't know why you decided flying was cool.
I don't know why I remember this story and why this is what sticks in my mind about being a pilot. But my parents, when I was a little kid, took me to a guy that was, and I don't know if it was like trying to determine an IQ or if it was just some kind of weird thing, but I can't even tell you what it was for. But a guy who was a friend of theirs was doing research of some kind, and he was sitting down with me and he was asking me questions. I was a little kid. I mean, I can't imagine I was older than 6 or 7, maybe even younger than that. But I remember vividly him asking me what goes faster, an airplane or a car. And I remember thinking, well, when I'm in the car, I look up and I see airplanes and I feel like we're passing them.
Right.
So I said, a car. So I got it wrong. And I didn't know I got it wrong. He didn't be like, oh, you're a stupid kid, even though inside he might have been, but he didn't openly tell me. But I remember telling my mom after that, yeah, I answered. He asked me a bunch of questions, and I had to tell him he didn't know that a car went faster than an airplane. And my mom was like, "You did? Okay, hold on. You did what? You said what?" So anyway,
talk about this.
Yeah, she buffoons me, and she's
no.
"Yeah, coconut head. Airplanes go way faster." And right then, all of a sudden, I wanted to be closer to airplanes.
Like the speed,
Yeah.
the speed thing clicked off,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh,
Yeah, well, if they go
this
faster
goes-
than cars,
yeah.
I thought cars were cool. I used to draw semi trucks. I used to want to be a trucker.
Sure.
When I was a little kid, I drew so many semis, and I'd etch them in the top of homework assignments all the way through high school. Even
Right.
trucker, man, gonna be a trucker. And but airplanes, honestly, were always of interest to me, and it started with that weird little thing that they go faster. And so then we started doing, I don't know, I probably at 10, 11 years old, we went to Silverwood.
Right.
And it was, the guy had, it wasn't a steerman, but it was a lot like a steerman.
Right. It was a biplane.
Famous airplane pilot, had,
Was that back when Silver was still
it was
an airport?
Yeah, it was an air park. So anyway, and we rode with him, and he let me fly.
Oh, no kidding.
He let me,
Open cockpit.
Open cockpit. I'm up in the front.
Yeah.
I had a stick, and he let me fly.
Right.
And we landed, and he said, "Hey, you did fantastic. You'll be a great pilot someday."
Right.
Probably says that to every kid.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But
yeah,
not that day. He only said it to me. I am good at this. I'm amazing. So I'm freaking out. Like, dude, I'm the best this guy's ever seen.
Right. Natural.
So, yeah. And then right around I think a lot of kids probably this movie captivated them, but Top Gun did it.
Oh,
Top Gun for me, all of a sudden I was going to fly Air Force jets, F-14 Tomcats, baby. That was me. And that really
Top
sealed
Gun added the adrenaline to flying. Like there was no flying movie that came out and just went full bore. It was Top Gun to airplanes was what the Fast and the Furious
to little race racers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was their movie that was like, you mean we can do more than just and yeah, everybody was like, oh, airplanes are this.
Mm-hmm. It was cool. It was a great movie, and it did a great job. And now we have Top Gun Maverick, and I talk about it constantly at rodeos. I mean, I don't
Oh, I
know.
think it did it again.
The sequel
Like
is
it
better.
reignited. Yeah.
And I can't say it's better because without the first one, you don't have it, obviously. That's an obvious statement. But
But
the
how
way
bad
the
is it when you see a
storyline,
movie that's worse than the first one?
right? And I mean, that's why Tom Cruise took 30 years, whatever it's been.
Well,
I
I
mean, it's
mean,
been a long time.
speaking of what got people into flying, even Tom Cruise himself is like the whole reason I fly is because
I did that movie.
I was just an actor, and then I have to do this role in this environment, and I mean, what is? I was seeing a thing with him the other day. Somebody asked him, how many licenses do you have? And he's like, I got a helicopter, commercial airplane. Like, he's listing them all off. The guy flies. He's not just one of these like celebrity, oh, I got my private pilot license after I did a movie one time and I don't fly. And,
Yeah.
like, he does his own stuff
Yep.
because of Top Gun.
Yep. It's awesome. I mean, it was a great movie that just captivated me. But then for me, it was financial. Then I started rodeoing and
When did it move
into high school.
When did the idea hit you and it moved from being like this, oh, I'm stoked on airplanes to, oh, wait a minute. I could put my butt in the seat and I could do this myself and I could make this fun.
Honestly, when I started rodeoing, because I was a school teacher.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that, but I taught school from 1999 to 2008. I was a school teacher, and I started rodeoing on the side in 2005. And in 2008, I decided to make it a full-time career. Well, I got my pilot's license in 2010. So I needed a couple years, and rodeo gave me that income that I could do it. And so what I did is did
you just spend stupid money for like 3 months after you started making stupid money?
Kind of. I mean, I've always been fairly savvy with my dough, so I didn't want to make any huge investment or any huge mistakes.
Right.
But all of a sudden, I went from living check to check as a teacher to getting huge bulks of money.
Right.
And I would.
When did you look at it and you're like, okay, I bought a car, I bought a motorcycle, I bought a boat.
Paid off my house, paid off this, bought another house, that kind of stuff. But here's how I decided to rodeo for a living. And I don't want people to think I'm loaded. I'm really not. No,
it's a numbers thing.
It is. But I took my teaching salary for the year, and I couldn't figure out if I wanted to rodeo full time or not. So I told myself, here's what I'll do. I will rodeo in the summer for 2.5 months, and I will find out if I equal or come close to equaling my teaching salary in that 2.5 months that I get for the whole year, then I'll feel safe to step away from teaching.
You doubled it, didn't you?
And I will, no.
No? Okay.
Not crazy, but I did equal it. So in 2.5 months, I made my year's salary
that's what I mean. It's a numbers game
for teaching. Right. And so then, but what that did is it allowed me the freedom to, okay, if I walk away now there are some great benefits to teaching school. And I will tell you, health insurance is the biggest one.
Oh, it's huge.
Health insurance,
working
time
for
off
the
is
government.
great.
Yes.
It's really good. I pay my own health insurance, so it's ridiculous,
Yep.
overpriced. And I get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So,
no, the two things, it really equalizes out. You don't get something for nothing.
Yeah, no. So I make more, but I spend more. But so anyway, what had happened was I told myself, man, I can actually afford to do things now without payments. I'm not a payment guy. It freaks me out. I hate making payments. And I had $12,000 from a rodeo, and I put it to the side and said, I'm going to learn to fly and get my license. They say it will take $10,000.
Yep.
At that time in 2010. Probably takes more now. And so I put 12,000, and I went out to Martin Field, which was the local airport because I lived 1.5 miles from them. And I just started asking around. And at the time it was it called Tailwinds? Doug Cheney.
Oh, I think that, yeah.
I
think that's what it was.
I forget his flight school name, but I think it was Tailwinds. Anyway,
and I had
it was a
little light
jabberoo.
sport. Yeah.
It was a jabberoo. I didn't know what the hell a jabberoo was, but it was Australian made and whatever.
Some egg attached to wings.
Didn't care. I was out there and I bought a introductory flight, and Jock Morrison was my instructor.
Yep.
And we went up and we went through the stuff, you know, the steep turns and the
Yep.
turns around a point, all the things, stalled it. And when we landed, he said, "You would probably pass right now." And I thought, well,
What was Jock
awesome.
like to hang out with? I flew with Jock one time.
Man.
When I had to when I failed my private pilot check ride in the last 5 minutes of my check ride.
Oh,
And I had to do the retraining on the thing that you miss.
Jay did that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had to go fly with Jock. And so that's the only time I've flown with Jock. But the guy is just calm.
Dude, you can't rattle him.
No.
You can't rattle him. I flew the Jabiru, and when I, you know, what's funny is sometimes beginner's luck is a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've driven semis and tractors and all these things, and I had probably close to 500 hours on the flight simulator.
So you have a mechanical understanding of what's
I
going
had an
on.
understanding. You know, when you start a turn,
Situational
you're going to need
awareness.
to pull back a touch
Sure.
to keep the nose level.
Yeah.
So I had a little understanding, but we went through all this stuff, and when we landed,
Yeah.
he said, "We could probably do your check ride right now, and you would probably pass." And I think that he might say that stuff. Instructors have little things, motivators to keep students
Oh,
going.
I never do that.
You let them wash out.
Oh, if I can.
Yeah. See, and Jock didn't do that. And maybe Jock needed the business. Maybe he, you know, whatever reason, but he motivated me. He was like, "You need to do this. You
Yeah.
definitely can handle this." And I was also, you know, like I said, I was into it and I wanted to do it. So I was driven. But that comment led
I mean,
me
you
to,
also showed up with $12,000 ready to fly.
Ready to
And
fly.
that says,
I'm
see,
committed to this.
in
But he didn't know I had $12,000. He didn't know that. He just knew
you
I was
didn't,
an
you didn't
instructor
walk
to
in the
fly.
door. You didn't lead with that one.
I didn't know.
Because most people that show up, they're like, "Oh, I want to learn to fly." And what I find out, and this is why I don't, like, I really try not, like, I try to let flying be its own encouragement.
Right.
Like, the time that I will start to encourage people is after they've already started to fly and the initial shine is worn off.
Yeah.
That's when I start encouraging people that stick with it. There's a reason you're doing this. It's not as hard as it feels. You have to just get past this point of dirge to get to the payoff.
Right.
That's when I start encouraging people. Right out of the gate, what I do is I make it easy and fun. And those two things, you make it easy and fun for somebody, they're sold, they're in.
They're gonna
But
come
what
back.
I find out lots of times is that people don't get into flying because they want to be a pilot. They get into flying because they want an airplane ride. And airplane rides are way easier to give people than teaching them to be a pilot.
Right. Right.
And so, kind of backing up the question, did you know that you wanted to be a pilot? Because that's what you are.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you got in for. The 18-wheeler guy wanted to operate the airplane and be a pilot and do all the stuff.
No, exactly. And I did. I wanted control. And when he said, "Okay, you have the plane," and then I said, "I'm, you know, you're supposed to. I have the plane." It was like, yes, I'm in control.
It's an electricity.
Oh man, I mean, it
Yeah.
shocked me right in the beehole. I was jacked, man. Everything, and I didn't have any fear.
Yeah.
And that was
That
was
comes
a
later.
good thing. It did, and that's what I was trying to get to too. Is that I had this. I mean, I aced this
Initial
introductory
flight, yeah.
flight, and then I sucked the next 5 or 6
Oh,
in a row. Like
yeah.
all of a sudden, I'm overturning. I'm screwing up my rudders. You know, so like,
And you
I'm-
feel like your instructor hates you because he just there's nothing you can do right. Well, you're a little bit high or a little bit low. You came out of that turn too early.
flying with your dad. Oh my god, just constantly.
What are you
And then-
doing that for?
But I love how he instructs with questions. Do you think we're good?
You're a little bit high.
And I'm just like in
You
my
coming
head,
in
I'm
low?
like, oh shit, maybe I'm.
Which
not
way's the wind
good.
blowing?
Yeah, and he'll be like, he just asks questions, and do you feel high? And you're like, yeah, and he's like, well, then do something about it.
Yeah.
Do you feel low? Yeah, then do something about it. And it's such a great teaching method because you realize you sometimes forget, and you've said this to me too. Don't forget, this is a machine.
Yeah.
You're the one flying the machine. You're the one making the machine do what we want it to do. If you feel you're high, then do something about it. If you feel you're low, do something. You feel like we're turned too sharp, do something about it. So you have to, and sometimes you forget, you lock up and think the airplane's just going to do what you need it to do because you think.
Well, but here's the other thing that happens, and Dad's run into this lots of times, and this is why his attitude is the way it is. And I don't know why I haven't run into it. Maybe it's because I just carry a different attitude when I'm riding with people. But the thing that'll happen with Dad in an airplane is the guy flying the airplane will sit there, and because he's there,
Yeah.
he'll go, well, if anything's off, Fred will take care of it.
Fred will just fix it. He'll
Yeah.
tell me.
I mean, I don't want to tell Dad stories before he has a chance to tell them himself, but the one that he relates to me a lot is he was coming in to land with a guy. He's just sitting there. Dad is
Right.
just sitting there, right seat, waiting for this guy to fly the airplane. They're coming in to land, and the guy's not even lined up on the runway. Like, he rolled out final approach, and he's like
Offset.
not just on one side of the runway. He's like lined up on the grass.
Oh, yeah.
And they're coming in, and
it's
they're
not
getting
a
closer
grass
and
strip.
closer, and Dad's waiting for him to correct, line up, whatever. And finally, Dad's like, "What are you doing?" And the guy literally looked at him, and he was like, "Well, I just figured if I was off, you'd do something about it."
Yeah.
And Dad's like, "I'm not here to fly the airplane for you. Like, I'm a passenger."
Yeah.
And so Dad gets really, like, he's reluctant to take that role of just sitting passively. I think that's why instruction is good for him, because he doesn't have to sit there and passively let somebody else wreck the airplane for him.
Yeah.
But I won't. And I'll play dumb, so people will fly the airplane instead of me.
Yeah.
But anyway, can't remember why we started talking about that.
Well,
It's gonna happen a lot.
It's because
I'm gonna lose my train of thought.
Your dad he's an instructor that, for me, has pointed out things as you fly, brings them up in question format versus telling you what to do. He wants you to recognize the mistake before it gets, catastrophic. And so I like that about him. And obviously, and then there's this weird mystique about Fred Ball that's developed probably countrywide, but in aviation, but definitely in our valley here. If you say Fred Ball, everybody kind of has this.
Not everybody in the right circles, but yeah.
Yeah, but in aviation, people, he's got sea level fame in aviation, and I just it's Fred Ball. And then when you fly with him, you kind of see why. You kind of, I flew with him in his Pacer.
Oh, did you go on the Pacer with him?
Oh, lots of times.
Oh, okay.
I have, probably 7 or 8 hours with him total.
Did he ever give you a flight review?
No, I don't think I've ever done anything where he had to
So
sign off.
it's just
'Cause
riding around.
He would just fail me. So you'd be like, this clown has no business being in the air. But what was funny is he you know how you can yank the rudder over and use the airplane's tail to slow yourself down, kind of fishtail the airplane to slow it down. So we were landing at Mark Small's. It's not even a strip; it's a hillside. That's
He basically took his grader and just cleared out a spot that you can land.
I don't even know if this was just a hillside that they'd been landing his Cub on,
Yeah.
his Super Cub. And so we were in the Pacer, and it's steep. And I think he was just like, think we can land there? And I was like, I don't know. I get you're Fred Ball, man. You can land on a toothpick, dude. And so he goes, well, let's give it a whirl. And so all of a sudden we drop down, and he's doing this thing, and I was like, well, what are you doing? He's like, oh, it just slows the airplane down. We got to get slowed down. We're going a little fast. I would never know to do that. I would never know how to do that stuff. And he would literally use the airplane to slow itself down with its butt end, and then drop down and landed. We were going uphill, like steep uphill. And
Which is a great technique, because then you can land going slow. You use gravity to slow you down.
right. But it took damn near full power to land.
Absolutely.
And it was kind of unique for me because it was the first real off-field landing I'd ever had.
Was that before you and I landed the Pacer going straight uphill? Or I mean the Clipper?
Yeah, I think it was. It was one of the first times I flew with Fred.
So this brings us back around to why I sent you flying, or why I took you flying, and why I sent you flying with Dad. Because there are so many more things that you can do with an airplane to make it fly the way that you want it to fly. There's so many more tools. It's like, I don't know. It's the same thing as when you teach somebody to ski. You teach somebody to ski. You teach them the pizza wedge. You teach them to turn. You give them about 3 tools to use that they can use to ski safely.
Right.
Your private pilot license, you learn how to fly a traffic pattern. You learn how to control your airspeed on the slow end. You learn how to aim for a point and land. You're really not given a whole lot, but there's so many more tools at your disposal in an airplane, and the experienced pilots know when to use which tools.
Yeah.
If I drew a mechanical parallel, I used to work with kids. I call them kids; they're college kids. Out at Walla Walla University, I was in the maintenance shop, and we would do inspections and just standard repair, scheduled maintenance. And so to offset the cost of having a full staff of mechanics, they would staff 2 mechanics and give us a bunch of student help to do the grunt work. And so we had like 2 rolling toolboxes of a basic set of hand tools that we'd let these kids use. And I wouldn't let them work out of my toolbox. Not because I didn't want them touching my tools, but because they didn't know which tools to use at which time. And in the basic set of tools, they had screwdrivers, hammers, pliers, wrenches, sockets.
Right. Yeah.
You look at a thing and you go, okay, I need a wrench for that. I need a screwdriver for that. I need a socket for that. You look in my toolbox. I've been a mechanic for 20 years. You open my drawers, there's 50 different kinds of wrenches. I know exactly which wrench I want to use at which time on which thing. But a kid pulls, open my wrench drawer, their eyes pop and they're like, which, I don't even know which one to use. And they 9 times out of 10 would grab the flashiest, shiniest, wrongest wrench to do that job.
Wrongest.
The same thing with flying.
Yeah.
There are so many tools that you can use to operate an airplane. And this is why flying with Dad, I send you to go fly with Dad because I want you to see what the tools are. I've learned so much over the years just by watching him. And half the time he's doing stuff that I don't even know what he's doing at the time, but I'm watching him doing it, thinking to myself, I'm going to remember this. I don't know why he's doing it, but I'm going to remember it for later and then ask him about it and figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Teaching by example.
See one, do one.
Yeah. It's I don't know, when I think about the way I fly airplanes now, and I don't get to fly as much as I probably should, but what I enjoy about airplanes is all the stuff that I did with you in the beginning. And I like to feel like a bird.
Yeah.
You don't see birds at 7,000 feet.
Flying in a straight line.
You just don't. What you see birds doing is contouring the ground. You see them looking at the ground, hunting, whatever.
Yeah, you want to go look at that thing? Go look at that thing. Go fly over that
over there.
Thing. Go, yeah. If you want to go around that tree, go around that tree.
Yep. But it does. You got to keep your heads up. It reminds me. I spoke of this. The little 120 that I own, that we got. I bought from Dell's family when he passed away. It reminds me every time I told this story at his funeral, when you and I got in trouble for flying under the power lines, going up at the deal because we were in the 150 that your dad owns, and we were flying down the canyon. We went under the wires, and then he kind of ratted us out inadvertently to Fred.
Dell did? Dell ratted us out that we'd flown under the power lines?
Sam's was the reason. Yeah, he's gone now, so we can talk about it.
Right, yeah.
But yeah,
I didn't even know this.
Yeah,
I didn't know that we got ratted out.
Oh yeah, your dad chewed my ass.
I mean, to be fairly like 100%, I don't remember us flying under the power lines either. But
yeah, it never happened then. That's fine. But it really did. We flew under the power lines
here's
down
the thing. Were they the big old like transmission
huge
lines?
Yes.
The ones with the balls?
Yes. They were way up.
Yeah, when you fly under
below
them, you're like
you're clearing them by a
like the reason the balls are there is so you can fly under them.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. So we come down the canyon and we fly under the power lines.
Right.
And it's right over Dell's house.
Right, through his yard because you got to say hello.
Yeah, and he he recognizes the little plane, knows it's Fred Balls.
Yeah.
So he then, when he sees Fred, tells him, "Oh yeah, I saw you come down there and buzz me. Come under the power lines there." And
Dad goes, that wasn't me.
yeah, that wasn't me. And so then he knew if it wasn't
me,
him, it was you, and I'm always with you. So when he caught me, he said, "Now I don't want you flying under them power lines." So when I saw Dell, because he was a shirt tail relative of mine, I said, "Dell, were you ratting us out?" And he goes, "I didn't know it wasn't you. I thought that was Fred. And, Fred does stuff like that. Well, I didn't know it was you guys." And then, and then what was funny is the second after he kind of said, "I'm sorry to rat you out, but you stay above those. You don't need to be," and he gives us the lecture, the old man lecture. And so and then every time I saw him, it became our thing. You staying over those power lines? You stay over those power lines. You stay above the wires.
I play the over-under game.
Yeah.
I play the over. If I probably play it with you. We're flying along and see some power lines right in front of us, and I say over-under.
Yeah.
Over-under game. I never go under them.
No.
But the thing that's fun about it is, like, half the time that you and I are doing this, we're low enough to go under.
You could go under. Yeah.
I just never want to, and so
because there might be that low-lying one.
You never know what's between power lines and the ground. You just never know unless you've been to that spot and walked it, and so this draws on, if I were to speak for guys who do this on a regular basis, like crop dusters, they go scout their spots. They know where they can fly under power lines, and they have to get their to lay their product. Me flying along from between here and a place I've not been.
Right.
I see power lines. I don't know what's between the power lines and ground, but the
Get
thing
over
I
top.
always know is that I've never seen a set of power lines go higher than the sticks. So as long as I fly higher than the power poles, I'm not going to hit anything.
No, exactly.
But this comes back to what I said earlier. Don't run into the things that you don't want to run into. You don't run into oncoming traffic. You don't run into trees while you're skiing. Don't run into power lines. Don't run into the ground. Don't run into the trees. Fly in the spots full of air, not the spots full of stuff.
Yep.
I don't want people to get the idea that we're out trying to just recklessly utilize an airplane. We're not.
No.
We're trying to utilize an airplane within parameters of safety and pilotability. And if you don't have pilotability, reflexes, acuity to fly an airplane safely and comfortably closer than 1,000 feet above the ground and in a straight line, go do that kind of flying. That's okay. I'm not going to sit here and rail on somebody. Oh, they're not a real pilot because they're flying up high. And it kind of sounds like we're doing that, like, oh, yeah, they're just...
I don't think we're intending to, but you don't learn these skills without practice, and you don't learn these skills without seeing it.
Well, and the scary thing is, not to put a damper on things, there are people who are dead because they wanted to try something. And this is the thing. They wanted to try something. Well, let's see how this works out. And this is one of the things that Dad's related to me over and over again. Don't ever go into a situation that you're flying into with the attitude of, well, let's see if this works out.
Yeah, right. You need to know that
the thing that he's drilled into me over and over and over and over again, and this is what I wanted you to learn by being around us. The thing that Dad, that his mantra is, how does it go? Without, it'll come to me. With the outcome never in doubt. Whatever you perform with an airplane, do it in such a way that the outcome is never in doubt.
Yeah. I saw that with him at your wedding that I did when he came over in the Pacer, and we were at Martin Field, and everybody, a few people had flown in, and he just yanked the Pacer and took off on the taxiway. He knew and that I feel like is the ultimate of why we go out and play in airplanes the way that we go play in airplanes, is to know that what the outcome can be he's already taken off
based
much
on
shorter.
based
with
on
that
experience,
airplane.
I can look at that and I know I have enough distance from here to there that
Yeah.
I can take off
He had
and be airborne.
literally a quarter of the runway in the actual full length runway. There's about a quarter of it on that taxiway left. He spun pacer, hammered it, and took off, and had 75 feet to 100 feet of runway still left.
And the reason he did that, I guarantee you there was a reason. It wasn't to look cool. It wasn't to, just because he could. Uh, when he does stuff like that, there's a calculation involved. And a lot of people will see pilots do things that are non-standard and won't understand that a calculation goes into it. They'll just say, oh, he's being careless. He's being reckless. He's trying to show off. You'll hear those things thrown around because I say classically, like it's the thing, I just made it up. A classically trained pilot will look at non-standard things as, they won't look at it and go, oh, that's something that can be done either safely or with a calculation. They'll just look at it and go, well, that's non-standard. Therefore, he's going off the cuff. No, I guarantee you, Dad looked at that spot and went, okay, my takeoff roll is going to be shorter on a smooth piece of pavement. I got plenty of distance to take off here if I wanted to with this overpowered pacer with a light load. He probably had a half tanks of gas, just himself in it. He's a lightweight little guy. He just went, yeah, I can do this all day long. So I'm going to do it now. Get out of here. Because the other thing that was going on was the rest of us were getting ready to leave in another airplane. And if he's gone and out of there by the time we're ready to go, then there's no waiting around. He's not in the way. He's not in the frame. Nobody's taking pictures of him. He's just gone. So we ran these mental calculations in about half a second, made a decision, went for it. Yeah. And I don't mean went for it like, hey, y'all watch this. I mean, he hit the go button.
Yeah.
It made sense. Anyway, I think we're about done.
Right on.
We'll come back to it. I'm going to have you back.
Yeah. I get to come back. That's a good sign.
No, I want to know more, dude. I want to hear more about you flying.
Are you going to edit these up?
I don't know. I don't know how to edit.
Yeah.
Like I said, right now I'm just collecting raw data. I'm just getting as much as I can into my computer. My hard drive's probably going to eat itself 6 months from now with hours of material that I will never be able to get back again, and my life will be over, and I'll be out,
Or we'll just have to do them all over again.
No, I have a thumb drive. I'm going to put it all on. But
I always feel like there's some of the best ones that I've ever done. There's a series of questions that you get to.
Oh, like at the end, they're like, I'm going to ask you a rapid 6 questions of aviation.
Yeah, or they
word association
start or end the same, or there's something. But throughout the deal, just to kind of keep you on point, because I'll drift like you would believe.
That's what I want.
But that's some of the best stuff is when you kind of drift off.
That's why we're doing this on purpose. I want to. You'll bring something up next time we meet. I guarantee you, I'm going to unpack that. I want to know. I want to know about the time that Dave Cheney crashed right in front of you with your wife on your first
ever
passenger carrying private pilot flight. There's all kinds of stuff that
terrifying
feeds into this. Buying an airplane, buying the wrong airplane, not listening to your friends and buying an airplane from Florida.
I thought that was going to come up first. It's like, you moron. Here's J.J.
Here's
Harrison, the idiot that didn't listen.
Here's the hard thing about today. You and I went out and flew, and as we're flying along, just sitting here talking in the radio, I'm like, this is everything that I wanted to talk about in my living room.
Yeah.
But that's, when you and I get together, that's the nice thing. Like, we're not short on words.
No.
Like, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to put a butt in your seat and it's just going to go terribly. And I'm like, I don't want that, but it's going to happen. And like, I'm not going to know what to say. They're going to be like, oh yeah, so I got into flying and I've been flying for 10 years now.
Yeah. No, you need chatty people for these types of deals, but I also think there's a level of interest in different types of folks, because aviation is so unique in that, well, maybe it's not unique because I guess automobiles, everybody with any background drives them, but aviation is what do they say? 5% of the population flies airplanes.
Right.
So that 5% is very diverse in how they made the decision to do it.
Oh, there's stories for everybody.
And
it's
I
not
think,
just,
yeah.
experienced pilots where you get like the 30-year pilot. Oh, you got lots of stories. There's nuances about a guy that, has got 20 hours.
Oh yeah. Well, people always think I fly to rodeos. That's a
Right.
common thing for
Yeah.
me. I get that all the time. They're like, "Oh, you got your license so you can fly to rodeos." I don't. Every time I start an airplane, it only costs me money. There's nothing I do in an airplane that makes me a dime. Nothing.
No.
Every time I start it, it's spending money. Today it was $185 to fill it up, and we go fly for an hour. I probably burned $100 of that. I'll go fly tomorrow. I'll burn $200 of it, so for me this is just a cost, but it's the hole in the sky your dad talks about that I love throwing money in it. I love spending my money on this kind of thing and upgrading an airplane, making an airplane better, flying an airplane, changing airplanes. I finally got the dream plane. I think the 180 that we just flew in is my dream plane. When I
Oh, it's a lot of
started
guys.
flying,
Yeah.
it's what I wanted.
Right.
And I went through a 175. I went through a Cherokee 6. I did get the 300. Come on, give me credit for that. I did. You did say I was going to buy a 260.
No, I
And you were
talked you
like,
out of that.
do not get a 260. Of course, it was from North Dakota, so it probably wouldn't have.
I
the
would have
corrosion.
rather had you in a 260 horse, not corroded
Yeah.
pile of aluminum salt.
Well, but we didn't know it had brand new paint, and that's usually
Never-
lipstick on a pig.
Never
but
buy paint.
yeah, but it sold. That was the only good thing is it did sell. But I actually made money on the airplane, which I'm a buy high, sell low guy.
So I want to ask you about that because you said you made money on it,
I did.
but I know you put a glass panel in it.
I did.
Did you still make money on it?
I did. That's what was
That's-
crazy.
that's what I wanted to know.
That's what pre-COVID and versus COVID did.
airplane prices went so stupid in
went nuts.
2021.
I bought the airplane for $70,000.
Yeah.
Cherokee 6 300 had been sitting for about 7-8 years
Yep.
with 22 hours flight time
Yeah.
in those times.
Yep.
Indoor at an air park in a guy's heated
Climate controlled,
garage.
corrosion free.
All the shit that they say, right?
Yep.
Yeah, totally. So I go down. I don't fly it. I don't
Right.
fly the plane. I buy it.
Yeah.
My mistake. So then I send a guy down.
By the way, to anybody listening,
Don't do this.
write this down.
Yeah, don't.
Not
do
from Florida.
This.
Don't send somebody a check.
Yeah.
Fly it first.
No, I flew down. To put my hands on the plane, started it up,
Oh, you
taxied it around.
You didn't sight unseen it.
No, I didn't
Okay.
sight and
'Cause
see
I've
it.
seen guys do that too. They're like,
No,
I'm
honestly,
sending my ferry pilot in a check.
the best thing I did, honestly, was and I'd use you, but you're too busy. Kyle Bushman was the guy the last. Well, I'll get to that. Let's do this. This is a good story for people to know. So I fly down. I'm doing a rodeo in Kissimmee, Florida. The plane's for sale right near Kissimmee. So I drive up. I look at it. It's gorgeous.
Right.
He opens up the hangar. This is a Cherokee 6 300. Is beautiful. Ugly, stinking panel in it. There's nothing new in the
Right.
panel. It's just a bunch
But
of.
if you stand 10 feet away,
You stand 5 feet away. It looks gorgeous.
glorious airplane.
Gorgeous. So I open it up and I do the first thing everybody else does that ever looked at that 6. They were like, dang, this is a nice airplane. Then I call you. I talk to you about it. You're telling me it's not even a Cherokee 6 300 because of the way the throttles were. They weren't these throttles. They were push button throttles. So, and it was a 67. And so that
Had it been
changed.
converted?
That year they were push button throttles.
It was
weren't
like
the throttle
It
quadrants.
must have been like a first run Cherokee 6300 then.
Pretty much. And so, and the hours on it were good. It was 1,200 hours on the engine.
I love that we're on a podcast and you're like making hand motions that nobody
No
can
one can
see.
see. Yeah.
So what JJ is doing with his hands, he's making the
Showing
motion
the throttle
of a
quadrant.
throttle quadrant that you see in a jet aircraft.
Well, now
which is
I'm
what
jacked.
all
Now I'm excited to tell you this. So then I tell the guy, okay, look, I don't want to pay. I think he wanted 95,000 or something, and I said, look, I have $70,000 is kind of my budget, but I can give that to you in cash. And
that talks so fast in airplane sales.
Big time.
Because
'Cause I had it with me.
nobody shows up with all of the money. Nobody ever shows up with all of the money to buy an airplane. Everybody shows up and says, "Do you do owner financing?" I can get. Can I make payments? Well, can I?
not
Like
me.
nobody has all that money, and you showed up with all the money.
All of it in my backpack.
Like
I
even-
checked it
You
in
could
my.
you could probably show up with all of the cash and offer a guy half of his asking price, and he would take it if you started counting the money out on the wing in front of him.
I pulled it out, dude. It looked like I'd been keystering this money. Like I pulled it out.
Was it
I
in a
had
briefcase?
I had saran wrapped all these hundreds. Like, and it was a big stack.
I just imagine you opening your vest and having it strapped to your body.
It's only 70,000, right? So it's
it's not that much.
Not ridiculous. It's 700. So I had it in $100 bills, and I had I had a little stack of them, and I said I have $70,000 right here, and he said that will work because he's not flying anymore, and then he was very emotional. He was very attached to the airplane.
Yeah.
He had a replica of the airplane made out of wood and like a model, and like he was very, very attached to it. In fact, he's really mad when I sold it, but he was a big money guy that went broke, so he needed out from under it.
Yeah.
So then I go home.
Airplane's always the first thing to go because it's the only thing that costs money for no reason.
For no reason. So then I send it, and he didn't want to give up the airplane for 7 years. It sat in a garage because he loved bringing people over, showing him this beautiful airplane that he owned.
There's so many guys that do that.
Flew.
And I'm like, just fly your airplane.
Just fly it, bro. So anyway, I buy it. I send a kid down that became a buddy, and he.
I'm gonna talk to him, by the way. He's gonna be one of my guys.
He picks it up.
I haven't called him yet,
and
he doesn't know this.
Yeah. So Joe picks it up, and flies on. When he takes off, there's no vacuum pump. Like,
Nice.
and I paid a guy to annual it down there.
Right.
Stupid. Like, it's just the dumbest way to do it. Hired this guy's mechanic to annual it. So, it's all annual, good to go. Send the guy down, he flies back. Vacuum pump from takeoff didn't work. So it was an interesting, unique situation to go, But he gets it home and we've replaced a bunch of parts. I look at the airplane. The only thing ugly on this thing is the panel. So I put I dump money into the panel, and
Did you send it up to Coeur d'Alene?
Yeah.
Shout out to Barry Huck.
Barry Huck put it in, 60,000 into the panel, and it was very plain looking. It's crazy what 60,000 will buy, and it's even worse now, I'm sure, because prices have jumped even more. But it was very, very plain. Plenty of instrumentation to fly the plane, IFR and VFR, obviously. But it was crazy how plain it looked. We took out so much stuff. So it was very clean, neat looking panel. He did an exceptional job.
Yeah.
That's honestly what sold the airplane.
Yeah.
So I've got
that's what
60
people know how to gauge. That's the problem. People know how to gauge paint, interior, and avionics.
Yeah.
They don't know how to look at structure. They don't know where to look for things that are cracked, broken, falling apart. They don't understand. Oh, the one I always get is, it's only got 200 hours on the engine.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that's
doesn't
cool.
matter.
That's cool if it's got 200 hours since last year.
Right.
That's not cool if it's got 200 hours since 2000.
Yeah. That's what I run into because I don't get to fly enough. So I get the plane back.
Yeah.
I dump the panel in it over time. A couple years I fly it. Then I put the panel in. So I've got 70 and 60 and 10 put in it. And you can add that up, and it's basically $140,000.
And then suddenly,
$40,000.
Everybody's
airplane, and I sell it.
Everybody's airplane.
155.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I sold it actually for 175,000, and then
Everybody found out why the airplane came from Florida.
Well, yeah, and then he came out and did an annual, and that didn't go well at all. And they found, what was crazy is the guy that came out and did the annual, Kyle Bushman's his name.
Was that almost?
That's my mechanic now, man. That's the
Oh,
guy
do you send your
I
180 to Kyle?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, he
does he come
he
here?
bought it. He's the guy that
No,
I
yeah,
sent.
But
I
has
sent him
he seen it since?
Oh yeah, no, he flew it. I never looked at this 180.
No,
Kyle-
I get that.
Right, Kyle came and did the Cherokee 6.
But is he going to come to Martin, or are you going to send your airplane to him? When
I'll
it's
probably fly
annual
it
time?
to him.
Okay.
to annual.
All right.
Yeah, I'll do it because he knows the plane now.
Sure.
I had some mechanic issues and so the Cherokee 6. There were some definite things that had been missed and whatever. So I get that thing sold. I have to take a big whack off the price, but I still make money, even knocking
Yeah.
25,000 off. And I was fortunate the buyer still stayed in there. He had dreams for the plane, and hopefully he invests in it, brings it back to great condition, and then he makes money out too. That's what I hope. But it allowed me the opportunity to go after the 180 that I wanted. And man, I had a 300 horse 180 that I wanted. I found it on ASO.com, and I sent. So what I did is the mechanic that busted my plane
Right.
apart,
Yeah.
Kyle. I was like, you're now my guy.
Yeah. You're gonna find me the airplane that I want.
Exactly. So I
Rip and shred.
I flew him. I mean,
Yeah.
it cost me $2,000 to fly him down, and
Yep.
he flew this plane, looked at it. He's like, you don't want this.
Yeah.
This is a
Piece of junk.
pickup truck.
Yeah.
Beat up.
Yep.
Lot of motor. Hoopy doo. But this is a
Sure.
You don't want this. What's crazy is the guy that bought my Cherokee 6 sent me a link to the plane I own now.
Nice.
He's like, this is a good airplane.
Yeah.
Don't dicker with him on price.
Yeah.
Pay it. Everything
Yeah.
he wants. So he wanted a $175 for this one. I called him. I said, look, I'm going to send a mechanic down. If I send him down, I don't want to pay to send a guy down there and you sell the plane out from under me.
Yeah.
I agree to give you full price.
Yeah.
If my guy likes it,
Yeah.
we're done. And he goes, that sounds fair to me. And he's a very, very good guy, very knowledgeable guy. Arizona, the plane doesn't even know Florida is a part of the United States. So
Right.
that's good for my airplane.
No,
Doesn't even
Arizona's
know.
my favorite place to have airplanes out of.
So he goes down. Kyle's there for about 25 minutes, and he calls me and he goes, dude, you're going to want this airplane.
Yeah.
I'm going to tear it apart tonight. I'm going to work through the night. Tomorrow morning, I'll give you a definitive yes or no.
Yep.
But I'm going to tell you right now, you want this airplane.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you have the green light for me. If you think it's the one, tell him I want it. I'll wire him the money tomorrow. And sure enough, it went that fast.
Did Kyle fly it back here for you?
And Kyle flew it back.
Nice.
Yeah. And so he got it home. And then what was great is he got it to here, and then I flew him home from Walla Walla. And I mean, it's expensive to do that for a pilot. And you've done that too as a ferry pilot, as a mechanic pilot, as a pre-flight guy. So, it's not cheap for the buyer, but it is worth every penny to send you
I've always figured
and
that
not me.
I've always figured that I'm cheap insurance.
Yeah.
Because if I go get an airplane, if I take an airplane, I go get an airplane.
Right.
I don't care what happens to that airplane. I'll be able to fix it, find a way to fix it, give you an answer on what's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go find a mechanic.
It was great. It was well worth it.
Yeah.
Like anybody trying to buy an airplane, because that's what I did in Florida. I went down there. He opened up the hangar. It was so pretty. It was like angels fell out of
Yeah.
the sky. Oh, and I
Those
had
angels
to have
are
it.
corrose, by the way.
They were
Sick
very,
of
yeah, they were
those angel
yeah,
tears
they were
crying on the airplanes and corroding
farting
them.
salt water on the planes. What they were doing. Anyway, it definitely. I bought the paint. I did the thing that your dad, that everybody says don't do. I went down and did it, but I needed a 6-passenger, big horsepower.
You did.
Airplane, and I flew it for 185 hours.
You got your money out of it.
And I invested $60,000 into it and still made money
what did-
because the market worked out for me.
And what did you learn from flying that big, heavy airplane?
It's boring.
now-
I hated
no.
every second of it.
But it flies different. It flies different than
yeah.
Jabiru, flies different than 120, flies different than your 175.
Yeah.
And now when you get into a 180 as a heavier airplane, you go, oh yeah, I know what a heavy airplane does.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the 180. I love flying it. The 120 was a great time builder, was a great experience. I still own the 120.
Oh, the 120 makes you work for flying. The 120
Yeah.
is small enough, and this is what I tell people. If you're flying, this is what I hate about nowadays flying. Everybody's learning to fly in a 172.
Yeah.
A 172 was not designed to be a trainer, but that's what everybody's using it for. A 172 was designed to be what you graduate up to after you learn to fly. It's a 4-passenger airplane. You don't learn to fly in a 4-passenger airplane. You take your friends flying in a 4-passenger airplane. You learn to fly in a 2-passenger airplane. You learn in a Jabiru. That was good because that airplane made you work for it. If it was windy, if it was bouncy, whatever, it was underpowered, super lightweight. You learn what the air is doing in a lightweight airplane, and you have to fly through the air. In a 172, you bore a hole through the sky, and the airplane does the work for you.
Yeah.
So
That's very true.
this is why I tell people, fly everything you can get your hands on, even if it's smaller than what you're used to. Just fly it, learn from it.
Yeah.
Because now the 120, You learn to fly tail wheel in that. That makes you work for it.
Your dad checked me out in that.
Yeah.
And he signed me off, and he said, he got, I flew with him, and then he got out and I soloed or whatever. And I, I drug, I don't know if this is a good story or not. I set up, and for some reason, your dad has this mystique about him. So I didn't want to look like an idiot. And, the first one that he did, I don't know if it just worked out or what, but man, Martin, we got this little grass strip, and then there's a taxiway cuts it, and then a secondary grass strip on the other side of it. And so he landed and took off in that first grass strip.
Yeah.
And so I needed to do that too. So I felt like I was going a little fast. So I slipped it down, and then my tail wheel, I barely landed on the grass. Like I touched down an inch onto the grass. Like I landed,
right.
I drug that thing in, drug it in. I was probably landing at 35 miles. I feel like I stopped that 120 in about 75
touch
feet.
tail first?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Tail, wheels, brakes,
Yeah.
stopped it in about 7,500 feet.
Right.
And I was like,
75.
Damn, I'm the
75. Hopefully not 7,500.
no, 75.
75
really
feet.
Landed short.
Oh, you mean 75 to 100 feet?
Yes.
Okay,
Somewhere
75
in there.
to 100 feet.
I had it stopped.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, damn, I'm a bush pilot. I'm ready for Alaska. Hammered it, took off. I had, 300 feet to spare. I've got it nailed. So I taxi back over, and your dad goes, well, two things. One, you're lucky nobody was on that taxiway in front of the grass there, because you just smashed right into them. And number two, you don't have to stall an airplane to get it to land. I could tell that airplane was stalling when you touched down from the ground. Feel free to have a little more speed. And I thought, okay. But in my head, I was like, man, and then you watch people getting set up on final, and then they get too slow, and they spin them to the ground and die, and so it was a great reminder. And I know that it was on the verge. If I'd have been 150 feet in the air, I could have got myself into an ugly situation where I could have spun into the ground.
The thing
Too
that
slow.
The thing that Dad is he's uncomfortable with people doing things that he knows how to do, but it's hard. It's hard when you're somebody's instructor, because he walks this really fine line of, I know how to do things that will get other people killed because of my experience level. So I have to wear my kid gloves and not show them everything I know, because I know they're going to try it.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly what I did.
And get themselves killed.
Exactly what I did. Exactly what I did. I was like, well, this is what you do. Tail wheel, man. I've got, I have my hour and 15 minutes with him. So
That'll be good now.
Tail wheel pilot.
Yeah.
Signed me off. Look what I did. I landed short. I took off short. I did the bush pilot thing.
Right.
No, you can't be an idiot. The other quick story, and then I'll shut up. Remember when we went up to Palouse? You were working up there?
Oh yeah, up at
Shefflin's.
Up at Shefflin's.
And it's a paved runway, but we're in my 175, and we had the old guy Larry in the back with us.
Oh, that's right. He was with us.
It drops down, then it comes back up.
So I gotta qualify this story. So for anybody not familiar, I don't know who's going to be listening to this. So Shefflin's Airstrip in Palouse, a few people know about it. Like, it's, Rob Shefflin runs it. His dad, Dale Shefflin, used to crop dust out of there. And there's two strips that you can land at Shefflin's. Mm-hmm. Your choices are uphill and around a corner on a short strip, or downhill, which rolls out to uphill that you can't see the end of as you're in the downhill.
Yeah.
But it's a longer strip. And neither one of them, I worked there for a year and a half, neither one of them are ever into the wind. No matter which direction the wind blows, the wind never blows
Never
down.
helps you.
You might have a right crosswind, which is nice, but that's about it. Or the wind doesn't blow.
Yeah.
It's either a crosswind or the wind doesn't blow. And so JJ and I are going in there for JJ's first time. I've been in there a few times. I wasn't even working up there. I think we just went
we were
up
just
to
going
see
up
Rob.
to see it.
Yeah. And JJ's.
I'm landing downhill.
Yep.
At the end, we're doing the downhill into the rolling uphill, and so this is the first time I'm ever landing somewhere that's not flat.
Yep.
So you're kind of coaching me through it. I'm beautiful. I mean, I greased this downhill landing tricycle
Floated
plane,
halfway past the end of the runway and touchdown going downhill. So now he's still carrying speed through the
Got a lot
flat
of
and the
speed
bottom.
as we come up. Now I'm not getting on the brakes or anything because I'm used to having lots and lots of runway. But you're right. It comes to a cresting hill, and
And that's the end. The
end.
top of the hill is the end.
And I'll never forget you saying, the runway stops here in about 60 feet.
Yeah, I think I said you're going to want to get on the brakes.
And we're doing about 40 miles an hour.
We're still cruising.
And I ended up having to skip the plane. I mean, we hit the brakes so hard, the plane hopped.
We did not go off the end of the runway.
We didn't, but you had to get out.
We did not have room to turn around.
You had to get out, push the tail down, and spin us around. I do remember that. Going, oh my God. And
Did you learn anything?
Well, I learned that Larry about crapped his pants in the back of the airplane. That poor cat, I terrified him. He was like, oh my God, these guys, I'm not flying with them again. But yeah, no, now I know you get the airplane, you get it down, you get everything under control before you go to your flaps, you start messing around in the cockpit, especially with tailwheel planes.
Oh, I see guys doing this all the time. They touch down on their mains and dump their flaps.
Yeah.
They reconfigure while the airplane is still flying.
Yeah. Stop doing that.
Don't like that.
Oh, man.
Bothers me. It's my pet peeve. Now, are there skilled pilots that know how to fly an airplane through that configuration change and use it to their advantage? Absolutely. Those guys exist. Does he have 500 hours and 30 in the tail wheel? No.
No. That's kind of where I'm at. I get everything. I get the plane stop it from flying, then I will dump the flaps. And I'm still moving. And there's guys, and maybe I'm one of these guys that probably should be like this, but there's guys that don't reconfigure until the airplane is going.
Oh, they're at
5
a
miles
dead
an
stop.
hour.
Yeah, they'll wait till they're dead stop.
Yeah,
those are the King Air guys that are afraid to touch anything because everything is the gear handle.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't touch that. You might retract the landing gear.
Don't retract the landing gear.
We're in a 180, man. It's cool.
Yeah, it doesn't come up. But there's so many fun things with airplanes. There's so many, like you said, so many more stories and things to dissect and get involved in. But I think it'll be I think you'll have fun with a lot of raw footage.
I just want to get the material and figure out what to do with it. I don't want a theme song. I don't want a gimmick. I don't want a starting thing. Like I'll probably put an intro to these and talk about this is JJ Harrison just to
who I am, who you are.
Because otherwise, there's a whole lot of people in the aviation community with really good stories that people don't really know who they are.
Right.
But listening to what they have to say is important. So if I can, there's got to be a hook there somewhere.
You have to credential yourself. Don't not do that. That's the one thing. If I can give you any advice from my perspective, is that every time I'm introduced at a rodeo, there's so many times I feel like, dude, it's so stupid. Why you introduce? Everybody here knows who I am.
Right.
Why do you go through that? I've been to the NFR. Why do you go through all these accolades and crap that I've accomplished or done? And I had an announcer named Boyd Paul Hamus that told me, he said, if I don't credential you, these people, and he's got this weird Texas thing, but if I don't credential you, these people, I'm going to know who you are.
Yeah.
And I want them to know when they're getting the best.
Right.
And I was like, okay, thanks, I guess. Is that good? Is this a good thing? And
well, a lot of people don't have a metric.
Right.
A lot of people don't have a metric without it. Like,
what's a good pilot?
Here we've been talking about Fred Ball for the last, nobody knows who he is outside the thing.
Right.
What's the metric for Fred Ball? The guy's flown for 30 years in Alaska without incident or accident.
Right.
Flying some of the hardest airplanes in the hardest conditions on planet Earth, where the conditions change nonstop on a daily basis. You can go into
seaplanes and Widgeons and good. I mean, he's like the premier guy in the country.
To the point where just by doing his job, he became notable enough that people outside the country would call him for advice or personal training before he was even a flight instructor. Like, he did not have his instructor rating for years after he quit flying up in Alaska. He wouldn't get it, didn't want it. But he was qualified to train because of his ATP license. And so he trained in the company, gave thousands of check rides, gave thousands of hours of training in these airplanes for the company. Yeah. So he knew what he was doing. He knew how to instruct. And people would call him and say, I need you to instruct me. He'd say, I'm not an instructor. Like, go learn to fly your airplane from an instructor and then call me and I will teach you how to fly your airplane.
Right.
Eventually he had to get his instructor rating. Eventually they said, Fred, you have to get your instructor rating because we need your endorsement to take our check rides. So he did eventually. But you have to have a metric, because if all you say is Fred Ball is the greatest pilot in the world, okay, how do you define that?
How do you know?
How do you even?
Sure, I thought it was Sully.
Exactly. No, and that's the thing. We hear these things and we're like, you meet it with a little bit of skepticism. All right, if this guy's so good, what did he do?
Yeah. Well, but to the average person, to my wife, I'm the greatest pilot in the world.
Exactly. So
because
am I.
I land every time and she walks away, and that's her metric.
Beth will say to me, "Oh, you're so good." I'm like, "You've flown with 3 people."
Yeah. Yeah, you don't really know. And even in my plane,
2 of those people are me and Dad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You just saw it riding in my plane, and I love it. It was already in there when I bought it, but it's the greatest statement. Please don't bother the pilot. He's more nervous than you are. And I like to remind people of that, because there's a pickup man that's a great friend of mine, and he got his pilot's license kind of because I inspired him he started it, went 15, 20 years without flying.
Right.
And then I took him flying and got him jacked up about it. And he went through Guy's pilot. Now he's got more hours than I do. He flies every day.
Wait, we're talking about Rowdy.
No,
we're not.
I'm talking about a guy named Matt Twitchell. He's a pickup man, and he's still active. But
this is how much I don't know about rodeo, that you literally call this guy what he is, and I would think you're talking about a completely different person, because I have no idea what people do in rodeo.
Rowdy also got inspired to fly, but he won't get his license. He bought some airplanes, got signed off to solo, and flew all over the place, and then wrecked one. And
so he's that 1,000-hour solo endorsement pilot.
I think so. I hope he gets his license eventually. I think he might. But no, Matt loves it. He just loves flying.
Nice.
But we were talking about this, joking, because he flies his wife and dog around all over the place. And he's like, something will happen, and I'll lean over to Molly and be like, are you scared? And every time they're like, no, my wife's the same way.
Yeah.
No, not. Well, you should have been a little afraid. That
Here's the thing. It all comes back to attitude. It all comes back to attitude.
Being calm.
It doesn't matter what the airplane is doing. It can be literally trying to destroy itself.
Yeah.
And if the pilot looks calm, everybody else goes, okay, he's backed way off. Mm-hmm. And we're in the same airplane as he is.
Yeah, so we're good.
Leading me to believe that whatever happens in this airplane is going to happen to him.
Yep.
So if he's calm, we can be calm.
They train flight attendants to do this.
I have flown with guys who are nervous, and I'm like, dude, just stop flying. Nobody needs this, because everything that happens, they jump, or they're twitchy, or they're tense, and you can tell it. And it just creates this tense environment where you're like, I don't want to occupy an airplane with you.
So this is it. We just went full circle. This is where we end a podcast for sure, because we went full circle. What my best advantage to being a pilot was meeting you, flying with you, was that exact thing. You took that nervousness away from me by showing me what an airplane can do, by flying with me and not telling me anything, but showing me with the airplane, they're capable of this. They can do this. Don't react. We did steep canyon turns. I barfed all over your plane, but I needed
the
to
outside
know.
of the airplane.
Yeah, I did get the window open, to be clear. But I laughed about it just today. I showed you. I kept the sweatshirt. Reminds me of that story every time I take the blankets on and off of my plane, because I'm the weirdo that covers my plane inside a hangar. But every time I see that sweatshirt, I think of that story. And I remember using the flaps to get around a tight corner. We weren't actually in a steep canyon.
That's probably what made you sick, is you had no visual reference for what we were doing with the airplane, because we were about 2,000 feet, way up high.
But we were learning how, and we weren't. You were teaching me how to potentially save my life if I get into a steep canyon situation and using the flaps to
you
make
can
the
turn
climb.
around so much tighter if you're going slower
That's right.
than
That's
if you're going fast. I mean, in terms of physical space that you're using, if you're going
That's the
fast,
stuff.
if you're going fast, it's going to take a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
If you're going slow, it's quicker.
It's quicker. Those are the things. And that's why I'm a very at ease pilot. Even when things are nervous, I flew the 120 down, came back. We had 50-mile-an-hour gusting winds, and a 120 really shouldn't even be flying in that. And I was able to get the 120 with my wife sitting next to me. It took me 2 times. And even the tower lady, I've never heard the tower say, it's a little windy out there. But she got on and said that. And it was gusting. It was 35 continuous gusting, 50-mile-an-hour winds in a Cessna 120.
Down the runway?
No, quartering crosswind.
Okay.
And
That's still doable.
Still doable. And I had to, part of it is I had to pee really bad. So we were going to get on the ground.
Now you see what I mean.
But I'm saying I was able to do it. I touched the tail wheel down. The plane took back off the mains, and I flew it in that configuration until it settled itself back down. So
I'm going to tell one last story about you from my perspective. This is a story that happened with you and me. I'm going to tell the story and then we're going to end this because now you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. We were flying from here to Yakima to pick up my nephew. It was light and very. I mean, it was kind of sort of blowing here, but it was blowing down the runway here.
Yeah.
So where we're at, we're in Walla Walla, going to Yakima, Tri-Cities, Pasco is halfway between in a direct line. So we fly directly over top of Pasco. We took off out of here, flew past Pasco sideways.
Yeah.
It was blowing
crazy
hard.
Wind. Crazy wind that day.
5 to 10 knots in Yakima. 5 to 10, 5 to 10, 5 to 10. I was checking weather the whole way. Checked the weather before we left. Checked the weather. 5 to 10, 5 to 10, 5 to 10. We called Yakima 10 miles out.
Not 5 to 10.
It was not 5 to 10. It was 25 gusting to 30. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, I mean, we had heard at 172 in the traffic pattern, 5 to 10 knots. Yeah. Nothing. And suddenly the wind picked up to 25 gust 30.
Yanked up there.
And I said, well, okay then. And JJ goes, well, what are you going to do? I said,
land.
I'm going to land. JJ goes, oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, we can always go around because that's what I taught you.
Yeah.
You set up for something, you can always go around. JJ goes, okay, we can always go around. I said, I'm not going around. You go, what? I said, I have to go to the bathroom.
Gotta pee bad.
And I knew I wasn't going to go around. I knew I didn't have to go around because I knew the wind was blowing right down the runway. So we land, and it's fine. The tail comes down. The Clipper's a stupid short-wing little airplane that won't fly again after you land the wheels on the ground. The problem was I couldn't get parked because it was blowing so hard. I couldn't pull my tail around to taxi back to the parking spot. You had to get out.
I had to get out, hold the airplane.
You had to get out, and we had to push the airplane physically backwards into its parking spot.
I had to push it against the wind.
I took a screenshot of after we took off. We picked up my nephew, took off. It was 27 gust 42 after we took off.
Dude.
So
I just remember it was nuts. Well, it took us, an hour and 20 minutes to get there and 30-some minutes to get home.
We were back so fast.
It was ridiculous. Yeah. We were screaming across the ground.
Oh, it was great. I love those.
Clipper.
Yeah.
Dude, it was, yeah.
That was back when I had the big tires on it.
ATV tires.
No.
ATV wheels.
No, it wasn't those.
What was it? There's something unique about it.
No, it's just the 850s.
850s.
Yeah. Anyway, let's put a fork in it. We're done. Thanks for coming,
man.
everybody.
Yeah, that's funny. I do.